Thank you so much for being here today for our webinar, Tell Your Ministry Story, Understanding Video and Digital Disciple Making. Little disclaimer, this is not all encompassing as the world and technology changes and evolves. Those at the cutting edge are probably just grasping to keep up, to be perfectly honest. My name's Andrew Jensen. I'm the audiovisual specialist at GCFA. A little bit about me. I grew up working in the United Methodist Church. I'm a PK, so from a young age, I was in local churches, making hand-me-down stereo equipment and speakers work for small rural churches in East Ohio. I kind of came up through the ranks, if you will, did some work with annual conference. And in 2012, I started at United Methodist Communications in Nashville, Tennessee. And I served and worked there for 7 years. And in 2019, right before the pandemic, I switched and gears up a little bit, and I started working with GCFA, again, in that audiovisual component. A big chunk of my job now is I am the executive producer for General Conference for all of the audiovisual production side of things. So really just trying to make sure that the technology is appropriate for our usage and supports our needs for General Conference, which is quite the task. But all right, so let's jump in. So in today's webinar, we will discuss the theory behind planning and scripting video, some basic best practices when recording videos, and we'll talk a little bit about the equipment that you can use, and then we're going to move into a time of Q&A. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat if you're joining us via the Zoom webinar, or your questions can go as a comment on the video if you're watching on Facebook. And Connor, my colleague here, will help me try and watch those chats, and we're going to try and answer as many questions as we can, but we're also going to record those chats and reach out with answers if we don't get to it today. And you can always reach out to us. And we'll be providing contact information. All right, including video and how your church shares its ministry story is more important than ever before. With 96% of users increasing their online video consumption and the average person spending 100 minutes a day watching video online, and that was as of 2021. So we at GCFA have created this video strategy guide for you to use to help you get started on creating video content for the first time, or to help you continue to develop your church's video ministry. So please download this resource and follow along as we go more in depth on what all of this means. And Connor's going to post a link to that resource guide in the chat if you have not seen that. So we're going to start by doing a self-evaluation. And this is a time to be honest with yourself on where you are currently as a church and what the true goal and vision for your video content is. These questions can seem really easy, really shallow, but you want to make sure that you really dive in deep to the true answer. And sometimes, in some cases, it might be a difficult answer to come to. But what is the purpose of the video? Is the video's purpose to entertain, to inform, to ask, to advertise, attract? It is possible for the video to have elements of several of these purposes, but the primary purpose should be identified, and all aspects of the video should support that goal. And then, who is the audience? While it is highly likely that more than your intended audience will see the video. I'm sorry, I lost it. Knowing who that intended audience is and really focusing the video on that is crucial. Is it church members? Is it church visitors? Is it church seekers? Is the intent for the video to be for families with young children, etc.? So let's take an example. So let's say the youth trip goes on a mission trip. They take lots of pictures and videos, and when they get back home, it's time to make a video to share. So let's go through this checklist. What is the purpose of the video and who is the audience? Is the video to entertain everyone? Is this just to say, hey, look, we had this exciting ministry that we did. We had a great time doing it. Maybe there's no voiceover, no explanation, no graphics. It's just music, pictures, video. We had this great mission trip. Or is it to inform church members? Maybe there's a voice explaining, this is where the ministry team went. This is how long we were there. This is what we did. This is who we helped. And this is how we grew as a team. So it's a kind of a status report to inform people when you get back. Is it to ask church members? Maybe it's 8 months later after the mission trip, everybody's home, and it's time to make a video and ask church members to help sponsor those people or new people going on the next mission trip. So you pull videos from the year before and you make a video showing how the ministry makes a difference. And you might ask them to donate, contribute, pray, to go on the mission trip. Or to advertise to seekers, people outside the church. This can be twofold depending on how you answer who is your audience. Are you advertising to the internal church members and asking them to sign up and join you on next year's mission? Or maybe one of those strengths of your church is its mission work. And so you're advertising to an outside audience saying, hey, come join us at First United Methodist Church, where we share God's love through mission. So those are some examples of how you can look at the purpose of the video and the different audiences of the video. Next, we're going to talk about some more. These are kind of more broad, academic questions, and that is, who are the members of your church and what makes them unique? So this is part of knowing your church's identity. Are you a church with a lot of young families? Are you a church that's primarily elderly? Are your attendees primarily corporate employees? Are they farmers? Is your church located in a college town? This can help you create content that resonates more personally with your audience. Next, what does your community look like in your ministry setting? Do the people that attend your church reflect the community that geographically surrounds your church? While neighborhoods and their makeup change over time, we all know about gentrification in big cities and just constant change in neighborhoods. Church membership is often tied to tradition and family based, meaning that the majority of your members might have moved out of the neighborhood over generations and now travel to come in on Sunday morning to attend. My granddad attended this church, and that's why I'm here with my family, type of thing. So when you're focused on messaging to the people in your neighborhood, it's important to know who they are and what that looks like. Next, you might want to identify your church's strengths. One mistake that many churches make is to try and be or to offer all things to all people. Instead, try to identify what your church is naturally good at and already equipped to support. Are you a mission church? Does your church have a strong children's ministry? Does your church have a food pantry, etc.? And here's one of the questions. This next one can be eye-opening, can be somewhat painful to identify, but what are your physical limitations of your church? All of our church buildings have physical limitations. If your church doesn't have a fellowship hall, then hosting community dinners is going to be a difficult task, especially if the weather's not great and you can't do it outside. Or if you don't have a nursery or a playground for children, making a video and advertising yourself as the church being young family friendly is going to feel misleading if a family with young children show up and don't find that infrastructure there to support their needs. Next, you might ask, what does your church have to offer new members? Knowing your church's strengths and being able to showcase them right away to people looking for a church home or visiting your church is key. A good mental exercise is to try and put yourself in their shoes. So as a first-time visitor. So like from the moment you leave your house, you grab the keys, you hop in your car. As soon as you leave your house, pretend that you just found out about this church and you want to try worshiping there for a week. Is this church easy to find? Are there signs that indicate where the location of the church is? Was it easy to park? Did you find a spot near the entrance, or did you have to park at the far end of the parking lot? Were people greeting and helping to show you where things were when you got inside? And when you first walk in the church, what are the first 3 things that stand out to you or come to mind? So really putting yourself in the shoes of that first-time visitor. And what does spiritual development and growth look like at your church? What are you offering to new attendees? Do you connect with small groups, or is Sunday school offered weekly? What's the next Bible study that's being led? Now, I know you're thinking the same thing as I was when I was working on this presentation. You're thinking, Jensen, this is a webinar about video. Why are you going so in depth about all these general marketing identity details? Well, it's simple, really. In a world of misleading information and false advertising, consumers want you to be real and genuine with them. Don't advertise things that your church doesn't already have in place and offer. Instead, focus on your strengths and what you do well, so that when someone visits for the first time as a result of seeing a video online, they find the church that they saw. They find the church that they knew in that video, and they aren't finding themselves thinking, this is not what I saw online. This isn't what I was expecting, at least in a bad way. It's not bad if they say, this isn't what I was expecting. This is fantastic. But we just don't want to make these fake promises or give the wrong impression through our video. And then that's not what they find when they get there. So that's really the first section. So I'm going to take a look at the chat here and see if we have any questions. Again, I know that was fast moving and high level, but really authenticity is really a very important thing to consumers right now. And so being able to be authentic in what your church offers, I attended a church once that, they had a nursery. They're like, oh yeah, we have a nursery for children. And then you go into the nursery and there was like, it kind of turned into a storage closet because there hadn't been people there in so long. And I, with children, and I understand that space is limited, but that space wasn't really prepared for children. So you want to make sure you're not advertising something you're not prepared for. Connor, did we have anything on Facebook? Anything noteworthy? If not, I'm just going to keep on trucking here. All right.
Andrew, I do have just one comment. Leslie shared in the Facebook chat. She said, I never truly thought about using a voiceover for informative videos. I could still use video and photos from church events, but instead of music for Facebook posts, I could record the voiceover and put info as to who we are. And she just wanted to say thank you for the breakdown.
Yeah, absolutely. And in kind of the end, we're going to be going over some more details on how to make that work. So I'll give you a little more about that. All right, so that was a quickish overview over the theory behind, really putting thought behind your video. So now let's discuss some best practices for recording video. Let's talk about the visuals. Now this is when we're thinking about recording like a scripted video. So we're not talking about, obviously, if we're talking about recording a baptism, what you're recording that event or a church service. Here we're talking about kind of a advertisement side of video. What features of the church look best on camera? Some churches, it's the pipes of the pipe organ, or it's the stained glass window, or you might have a beautiful fellowship hall. So here's some things to consider when you're thinking about recording as well. What time of day is best for the sun shining on the exterior of the building? If it's subliminal, but if it's a overcast day, if it looks like a yucky day, that's not going to be a day that you want to record an exterior video of the church. You're going to want people to associate it with blue skies and happiness. If you're recording the stained glass windows, what time is the best time of day to catch the sun shining through? If you're recording and you are talking about how your church is an active church, but you record at a time when nobody's in the church and there's nothing happening behind it, it might not come across as genuine. So maybe think about a time when, hey, there's going to be activity in the church. This would be a good time. And then let's see, what to include to both highlight the best that your church has to offer and make sure that it's authentic. So you're going to kind of want to think about, how do I highlight these things that we genuinely do? Another thing you might think about is there ministry happening off of the church grounds that you want to highlight? Do you have a group that volunteers at the local soup kitchen? And one aspect you're going to have to think about all this is photo releases. In a volunteer setting, you don't want to record where you're saying, look at us helping these people, and your vulnerable people are then being shown. That's not the goal. You want to show the people, your people doing the work, but you don't want to necessarily show people that are down on their luck or receiving that, unless they're okay with it. A lot of time on mission trips, people will be happy to do that, but you always want to ask permission and get photo releases signed. It can be a little tricky to do photo releases on a Sunday morning. You might have 7,500 people in the sanctuary, getting all of them to sign off. And so you can do bulk things like post on the door that says, by entering the sanctuary, you consent to have your image and likeness. There's all that legalese that you can find and post ways around it. But I've also actually recorded video in a church where there were people in the witness protection program. And so, you just want to make sure you always offer maybe a section of the back of the sanctuary that won't ever be on camera. You can let people know, if you sit here, you'll never be seen on camera, because the goal is to not make anyone feel uncomfortable. So yes, it's being recorded, and we will absolutely, anyone that was registered for this webinar will get a link. So I saw that comment come in, John. So, all right, jumping back in here, back to the question about voiceover. Will you have someone host or narrate the videos? And so if you do, you want to make sure that that person represents your church and your mission well. So if you're putting someone on camera, you're kind of endorsing them a little bit as the spokesperson for the church in a way, and you just want to make sure that that person represents your church and their mission well. All right, let's talk about a little bit about recording, and we're going to talk about actual equipment a little bit now. Let's see. All right, we're going to talk about camera. Did I skip one? No. Okay. We're going to talk about camera types. Cell phones. I mean, with today's technology, there are so many options for recording video. So here's a few options and some tips on how to best use them. So cell phones have come a long way in a very short period of time and are a better option than ever for most of your recording. And the best part is, almost everybody in your church probably has a camera or cell phone in their pocket. So things you want to think about: church events, hashtags, using hashtags for social media. It's not just about trending. It's not just about being, clever on social media. It's also a way for you to gather that media. So let's say you do a mission trip, but you make a hashtag that is custom for your group, and you want to vet it ahead of time, make sure it's not already in use by anyone else. And then when you go to make your content, you're able to go to that hashtag and say, oh, here's pictures, here's videos that people recorded. So that can be really helpful. Cell phones, of course, there's different levels of cell phones. There's all sorts of, we'll get a little bit more into that. The next is DSLR cameras. These cameras have a specific look to the video they record. They're generally sought after as a type of camera to use on an interview or a documentary, but the fact that depending on what a lens you have attached to them, you can usually get a soft or kind of out of focus looking background. And these are commonly still cameras, DSLR cameras. But they do, each one of these has a downside. The downside of a DSLR camera is that you zoom with your hand, so it's not that nice zoom to it. So if you want to zoom live during a recording, that's probably not the best. And also if you're doing something, vacation Bible school, something where it's kids, they're moving fast. With DSLRs, you're in most cases having to focus the camera, and that focus is usually slow to happen. So you might miss something by using a DSLR camera, which brings us to our last option, which is a camcorder. And these are primarily used for fast-paced environments. These include, this group includes like your home movie cameras. If you can remember way back to when people bought home movie cameras and didn't just use their cell phone for everything. But these cameras have autofocus, a smooth motorized zoom. And those are still a good option for things like vacation Bible school or missions or things like that. And then the last option, I didn't put it on here, but recording your church's live stream. So if your church live streams your service, you can record those and you can incorporate the footage from that into, something that you're putting together. So let's talk a little bit about recording tips. First one's cell phone related. Record horizontally, usually. Usually. It depends on the platform, but for the most part, a lot of this content is viewed on televisions, projectors, wide screens, right? So wide. If you know for a fact that the video you're recording is going to a social media platform that is not necessarily horizontal, Instagram, I think TikTok. So there are exceptions, but generally speaking, you want to record horizontally. Cell phones, you want to zoom with your feet. So a lot of like the new iPhones, you'd have 3 different lenses. You'll have a half X, so you'll zoom way out and it's a wide screen. You have a 1 or a 2. So that's a little bit of a zoom. But if you don't use one of those options, that's a preset lens on the phone itself, you're actually zooming digitally. So you're making the video grainy by zooming in on the video. And you can do that in an editing program just as easily as you can do that in the phone, but you're losing quality when you do that. So we always say zoom with your feet. So try, if at all possible, to position yourself to where the whole image you want to record is filling the screen without using that digital zoom. Use another audio source or be really close. So, and even sometimes being close doesn't help. So let's say you're recording in an empty sanctuary. You might be right next to the person you're recording, but it still sounds really echoey. So there's some options out there for wireless microphones that can hook up to your phone based on what phone you have, or DSLR or camcorder. But using a better audio source is always a good idea when possible. Get a tripod mount. So use a tripod. If you have a camera that has a tripod mount on it, use a tripod. Or if you're using a cell phone, you can buy those little cell phone clips that go on tripods. So this would be like for an interview, you don't necessarily want the camera moving around. It depends a little bit on the style. If it's an obvious stand-up interview that's really short, maybe handheld isn't a terrible option. But for anything long term, you want to make sure you have that tripod. And generally speaking, the more light, the better. Again, with technology changing, of course, these rules are adapting every day. But you may have noticed, if you're on your cell phone, if you're outside, you're at the park, you take a picture of your kids, grandkids, it looks really good. And then you're inside your house in the evening and you snap a picture of the dog and it looks blurry. And you're thinking, well, it's the same phone, it's the same settings. Why does one look better? Well, outside you have that light. And so anytime your phone kind of adjusts the digital brightness, it's going to degrade the quality. So more light, the better usually, but you want to make sure that light is in the right place. So we've seen this on Zoom. This is a good example. Someone's sitting in front of a window and you can't see them, right? They're in silhouette. But if you turn, like right now, I don't actually have a light on in the room I'm in. I'm just facing a window. So the natural sunlight is what I'm using. So you want to face the light source with whoever's being recorded. And then tight, medium, wide. So this is where, it gets a little more into the video theory side of things, but you want to have options when you go to edit a video. So you want to think in tight, medium, wide. So let's give you an example. We're going to show a wide shot of the church with someone walking towards the front door. Second, you're going to move the camera and record a medium shot. So now we don't see the whole building, but we see the person head to toe walking towards the door. And then they get to the door, they reach out, and now you have a third shot of their hand close up, grabbing the handle, pulling the door open, walking in. So you might recognize that in a TV show or a movie you've watched, that tight, medium, wide. So you just want to think in those ways to show options. It's always fun to see like kids' faces up close, but you want to make sure you get that medium or that wide recording to establish what's actually happening here. You may notice, let's say your church goes and volunteers at a food bank and the person taking pictures is all close-ups. So you might be looking through you might find yourself looking through those pictures someday and going, I wish I could see what it was they were doing. I wish I could see what the room looked like, what the ministry was, but all I see is close-up of faces. Or on the flip side, you might see pictures that are just these really wide pictures of a room and you wish, I'd rather see the action of what they're doing. So that's why you want to think in those tight, medium, wide. You want to make sure that those camera angles flow together and kind of complement each other. And ultimately you want to incorporate the kinds of camera angles and shots that will best demonstrate who you are and what you are as a church. Let's talk about going back to audio. Good audio is key. If the audio is bad, people will click off of the video very early. But if you have good audio, you can kind of get away with a little bit lacking on the video side of things. So audio is definitely king. And you want to pay attention to things like background noise, meaning, is there an echo in this room? Is the air conditioner really loud? And it's hard when you're in that space to like shift your thinking and actually listen for those things. But I promise, as soon as you're like in a quiet room in your house editing that video and you play it back, you're going to be like, oh my goodness, that it's so loud. Or don't interview someone standing right next to the street if you can help it because the car is going by. Just things like that. So pay attention to the background noise. As far as voiceovers go, putting audio over the video, many cell phones, tablets, they have built-in recording apps that are helpful for capturing this. And so when you're editing, you can then line up audio that didn't originally go with the video. So whether it's pictures, you can still have some music underneath it, but you just want to make sure that voice is clearly heard. And then create a script whenever possible to help structure your video. It doesn't have to be a long script. It doesn't have to be overdone. It can be something sweet, short, concise, but it'll help you more clearly communicate your mission and vision, and think about these details if you're thinking about ahead of time and planning what you're going to record. Next, we're going to talk about editing. The rule for videos is keep it short. Most viewers make up their mind about if they're going to finish watching a video within the first 10 seconds. So do what you can do to grab their attention, give them something that makes them want to stick around and see where this goes. Generally, when I'm editing, I'll start with a full length video. I'll take, let's say we did an interview, and I'll take the full length interview and I'll put it in there, and I'll trim the beginning and the end, and I'll listen to it for content. And then I'll start trimming it, and I'll cut, this part doesn't really help the message, and just keep on cutting. You don't feel like you need to use the video in whole. And then something that producers and editors regularly do is to have someone that's unfamiliar with the project, unfamiliar with the content, come in and view their edit and watch their video, because they can tell them where to cut even more. When I was at United Methodist Communications, frequently we would do this, bring in another producer, bring in another editor, because we're the ones recording the video, and we know the bigger picture behind what's not actually on the screen. We often get attached to the content and we leave too much in the video. We get attached to the project and the story behind it, but that story isn't necessarily being explained. And so we might end up leaving content in there and making the video longer than it needs to be. You also want to make sure that there's a call to action. This is where you ask your audience to do something after watching the video. It could be to sign up for the church newsletter, follow your ministry on social media, or simply come to worship. But any video you have where you don't put that call to action in is a missed opportunity. So you want to make sure, even if it's, at the beginning, we talked about an entertainment video, right? You show, it's just music, pictures, slides. Look at this great time we had. At the end, you could put, join us next year. Just something simple to let people know that, they can participate in this. Use royalty-free music. So royalty-free music is music that's licensed to be used in content. So you want to check out the actual royalty-free rules for everything you download, but you might be familiar with the fact that Facebook, YouTube, pretty much all social media platforms, if they feel like there's copywritten material, audio being shared on your channel, they will very much first take the audio off and ask questions later. They don't mess around with that copyright infringement issue. So you want to take a look for royalty-free music that you can use on your videos. And you want to think of your target demographic and edit the video in a style that's appealing to that audience. Let me see. Let me hop over. I have a question here. I've been considering taking a course in drone photography. It'd be useful to my father's business. Let's see.
This is from Leslie. She's joining us on Facebook. And I think she was just commenting on, you were talking about like getting different angles and the fact that having an overhead view, obviously it's a little bit more of an expense and you'd have to have that, but
sure.
Just the idea that that's another angle to consider if you were to have that capability. I know in my home church, I have a good family friend that has his own drone and has done a lot of photography for our town, but he's done some things for the church. So that's a great resource.
It is a great resource. And it's also great to include more people from your church in capturing the content. And the reason is we all have let me use an example. In high school, you have the team that captures your senior class video or pictures. Well, there's going to be more pictures of whoever that photographer's friends were, who they were hanging out with, than there's going to be of anybody else, because that's who they were around. And so the same thing happens in church. The more sources we can get our content from for a given, topic or mission trip or outreach opportunity, the more perspectives we'll be able to include in that video. And drone is a perfect example of another perspective, both like literally and just in theory, another person collecting content, because it can be it can be cumbersome for one person to try and capture everything. And maybe they're trying to also participate in the ministry that's happening. So if you just have everybody say, hey, if everybody could just, any videos or pictures you take today, if you can share that with us, that's going to give you a nice rounded opportunity. Brandon on Facebook says, do you recommend any specific sites for royalty-free music? I do. I mean, I use a couple of them. You can search royalty-free music. There are some sites that are 100% free, meaning these creators are, and again, read the legal disclaimers, but some creators genuinely share their music 100% free. Some of them want their name, and it'll tell you, we want our name and the song listed on the video. So you'll have different options. If you list the title, their name, the composer's name, you might be able to use it for free, or if you don't, you might have to pay. Some of the paid sites that I use are pond5.com, or one of my favorites is Motion Array, MotionArray.com, Motion Array. And but those are paid services. We don't really have any like affiliation with them. So, but those are just a couple of the sites that I use.
Andrew, I also I shared our ministry copyright guide. Our legal services department put together a fantastic overview for all the things that you might need in terms of streaming and recording audio and things like that. And there are a few suggestions in there with clickable links for some royalty-free music sites.
There's another option as United Methodist. The United Methodist Church, United Methodist Communications is a communications agency for the church, and they have an asset bank. So this is photos, videos, and content that is captured by United Methodist and shared there. And we're talking the denominations, photographers that are traveling overseas and so forth. And so you can reach out to them and you can get access to that asset bank. The way they operate is when you want to use content, after you have an account, you're going to request the use of that content, and you're going to explain what you're using that content for and where you're using it and how long you're using it and so on. But I mean, these are, colleagues that are amazing photographers and videographers capturing content. So, and even if you need logos, because there's the correct United Methodist logos, and then there's incorrect ones that don't follow the brand promise out there. So you want to make sure you're getting that correct content. So that's another good resource. Thank you for posting that, Connor. And then let's talk real quick about publishing. When you publish your videos to a website or social media, encourage your members to like and share the video. Even if they're just commenting, hey, Sally's so cute singing in this Vacation Bible School video, it really expands your ministry's reach. The more people that like, share, and comment on a video, the more that social media platform thinks, maybe more people would like to see this, and it adds it to more and more user feeds. So I keep saying mission trip, but let's say you go on a mission trip, you take a group photo, you post it online, people tag themselves. Now, instead of only reaching the members of your Facebook group, the people that have liked your Facebook page, you're reaching all of their friends on their sites, and it just exponentially expands the reach. So anytime that you create content and showcase other people with permission, definitely give them the opportunity to share that content themselves, and it will dramatically increase the reach of your media. And then make sure that you're formatting the video correct for the social media platforms and also for your audience. So for the platforms, you can go online. In fact, there's a guide that we have a link to that tells you, Connor, I don't know if you have access to that link. It was in Melissa's presentation, but we'll send it out with the follow-up email, but there's a information available for what's the proper resolutions and sizes for media for different platforms. So you want to try and fit that when possible. And then also when talking about formatting the video, you need to think about your audience again. For younger, millennial, Gen Z generations, the formatting should include captions and animated images, and it should provide truthful, genuine content. That's what they want to see. For older generations, you might want to emphasize the experience, the community feeling, and make sure that they see the benefits of that ministry, and then that call to action. Actually, I'm on this next slide here. So yeah, you want to take a look at that stuff. And then social media platforms, well, not just social, all digital media platforms are really doing a great job of automated closed captioning. So you probably want to make sure that option is turned on, because there's a lot of people that use that. And it's not just people that are hard of hearing definitely use it, and it's a benefit, and we should make as much accessible to them as possible. But it's also people watch videos in doctors' waiting rooms or just all over the place. They watch videos where they won't have the sound turned up. So if you give them graphics, if you give them these captions, they'll watch the video and read along. So it's kind of a weird paradox where people are reading less and less and watching more and more videos, but in some ways they're reading quite a bit in those videos. And then after your video is done, you get to start the whole process over again for the next one. But you want to think about, when you're capturing your audio and video, make sure you keep it labeled well, organized, and keep it in a specific place, like a external hard drive maybe that's backed up with a second copy. Hard drives absolutely 100% do fail. We, in my line of work, we use hard drives constantly for media and backing up, and the fail rate is shockingly high. Now we're using hundreds of drives over time, but I mean, they fail. So you want to make sure you have that backed up to another, or using a RAID hard drive, which has its own internal backup built in. And then when it's time to make your next video, you'll be ready to go. You'll know where that content is. You can combine it and you'll be ready to go. So I'm going to be watching for some questions here. I saw one just came in. Can I recommend editing platforms that are a little more advanced than what was bundled onto my PC? Yes. Okay. Yes, I can. Again, stipulation, these are not like partners of the UMC or affiliates in any way, but there is a video program called Pinnacle Studio. And Pinnacle is actually a part of the Avid family. Avid is what many Hollywood movies are edited on, but Pinnacle is kind of the do it at home version of that. I know when I was buying it, I literally got it off the shelf at Best Buy. You can also buy it digitally online, of course, now. And it is a fairly simple program. You can pull your clips in, but it has really, if you dive into it, has really advanced features. DaVinci Resolve is a program for Apple computers that is free. You can get the free version of it. It is going to limit you on a couple really advanced features if you get the free version. The paid version is like $300, but it's a very robust program. Elizabeth is recommending Filmora. Filmora is a good hobby one, she says, so that's great. Yeah, there's a lot of options. And then on cell phones, if you have an Adobe subscription, maybe your church has a Adobe Creative. There's Adobe Premiere, of course, but there's also Adobe Rush, which is a kind of a more simplistic version. And that's also available on your cell phone or tablet. You can use Adobe Rush, and that is pretty nice to be able to put, audio, video together, voiceovers, everything in one little app there. So those are a few that I personally have used and would recommend. Let's see, are there other questions? Thanks, John. Yeah, well, thank you so much, everyone. We're going to be kind of continuing to create more and more content like this. So if you have, this is being recorded, Heidi. So if you have any ideas for content, please let us know. I hope you find this information helpful in expanding your church's reach and ministry. And for real, if you have an idea for a webinar in the future, let us know, and we'll be happy to and try and make that happen for you. Or if you have any questions about what we went over today, or if you're even interested to expand on that and have us consult or even help you make some content, get you started, please reach out to our connectional relations team at GCFA and to discuss how we can best serve your needs. At GCFA, we have a lot of ministry support options, and so that connectional relations team will be able to get you in touch with people. So yeah, give us a call if you need anything. Do I have a place to watch some good sample videos? That's a great question. I don't have a specific source that I go to, really. Yeah, that's a great question. No, I don't have a specific space. I kind of spend some time on YouTube perusing and trying to get ideas. One thing that I have done in the past is gone to like denominational events, like the youth event that's held every 4 years. And we literally had a team of 3 people recording video, going out there, and we would get kind of like the man on the street interviews and things. And it was great. It was very successful, but we still went to those social media platforms where kids were posting videos and photos publicly, because we were able to include so many more kids that were at this event, thousands of kids at this event. And we weren't limited to just what 3, photographers were able to get up. So yeah, since the youth love to use their phone, that they do. And future topic podcasting, that's a good one too. Yes. So thank you everyone so much for being here. Please let us know how we can help assist you in your future. And thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, and I put down in the chat, hopefully you all saw it. Sometimes it lets me copy, sometimes it doesn't let me do it. I put a link to our newsletter, The Collaborator. It's a great opportunity to receive ministry resources to your mailbox every month. For your local church, you can take those, you can share them with members. If you're a pastor, do the same. If you're a conference communicator, please feel free to take those links and share them in your newsletters. Just let us know and we'll get you a trackable code so we can keep track of where everything is. But we want these to be resources for the denomination, for our local churches, because we care about them. I also linked to our connectional relations page. That'll take you to a flyer for all the over 45 services we offer to local churches through our UMC support brand. There's a lot there. I'd encourage you to look at that, and then just take a look at our website. It's a great resource. There's lots to learn. And then there's also a link to a post-webinar survey, especially for those who are not on Zoom, for those on Facebook. If you'd be willing to take that, that'll help us glean some information, and it'll give you a chance to recommend things. But I will post all of that again. And I think we had just a few more questions.
Yeah, I saw. So, Victoria was talking about the reading the blue on blue. Yes. Can we put the,
Yep.
Thank you. So the question about examples, do I have any recommendations for going to see examples of video? Something just popped into my brain, which is if you go to a stock video audio template site, and I just posted one, motionarray.com, for stock audio videos templates. I frequently find myself, so I'll go there and I'll say, I need a lower third graphic for a video I'm working on. So I go there to find a template to use, and I'll be going through that content and I'll be inspired. I'll see a template for something else, and I'll be like, oh my goodness, we need to use that. We need to make that video, right? It'll be a template to advertise your new website. And it's like a light goes off and you're like, oh, that is a piece of content that I need to do. And even Connor and the team recently, I sent a list of some templates out because we were looking at a project and what would best fit, like literally looking at 10 options, what's best fits the tone of what we're trying to do. And it sparked new ideas. So that might be a good place for you to go and take a look at content. But yes, Church of the Resurrection, definitely, they have a big team. They might be a great place to look, some of those larger churches. All right, I think that's it. St. Matthew's UMC is Debbie Dwyer from St. Matthew's is giving a shout out to me and the team for helping them get equipped with an entire camera system. Yes, that's one of the other services that we offer at GCFA is technology for your churches, and working to make sure that you get the appropriate technology, because there's a lot of companies out there that want to sell you the best and the biggest. And sometimes that's fine, but sometimes they're upselling you things. So we're happy to advocate on your behalf and make sure you're getting appropriate technology for your needs. So, all right. Well, we will, I'm going to put my email in here, ajensen@gcfa.org. But we will direct you through Connectional Relations a lot, because they'll be able to help you with all the different resources we have at GCFA. But, all right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.